I have been extremely lazy and neglecting a lot of my VTuber news work. So it's time to get caught back up. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the financial results for any color that came out just yesterday. The first thing worth mentioning on this chart is while the JP side has increased in profit by 22% over the past year, if you take a look at the EN side, you'll notice that they have actually dropped 40% in revenue, which is pretty insane. That is a massive drop. Not exactly a negligible loss in revenue, if you ask me. However, despite that drop in revenue, it is worth mentioning that their profit margins are still extremely high. Even despite that downturn, they still have a profit margin of almost a third of their entire gross income. I also wanted to point out that while they have 159 VTubers, they only have 388 non-VTuber employees, but if you look at cover, they only have 86 VTubers, but they have 492 employees. If you ever feel like the management with Hololive is just astronomically better than at Niji Sanji, there's the numbers to show you that's exactly what's happening. They just have so many more employees available to handle shit compared to the number of VTubers that they manage. And it's worth mentioning that having way fewer talents and way more employees doesn't come without its cost, as they're actually making about half the operating profit of Niji Sanji. So they're genuinely taking a much larger chunk of their overall income, which is actually less than the overall income of Niji Sanji, to make sure the talents that they have and the company they have are better taken care of. And for Hololive, this strategy actually seems to make a lot of sense for them, because if you take a look at it, Hololive's revenue per VTuber is almost double that of Niji Sanji. This slide is particularly interesting because it grants insight into running a large-scale VTuber corporation, and they point out how uniquely competitive they are in the entertainment market, specifically virtual entertainment. They talk about how having multiple talents allows them to have a very diversified revenue source, how they have extremely high profit margins. And they mentioned this here, which says VTubers' high retention rate, 97% retention rate. Now, at first glance, that seems pretty good, as a good employee retention rate is considered about 90%. It's generally accepted that if you're losing more than 10% of your employees every year, you're doing something wrong. However, one thing that's worth mentioning here is that this 97% retention rate is actually only referring to the number of domestic VTubers as of April 2022. If you actually take a look at Niji Sanji EN, they had 30 employees in April of 2023, and by March of 2024, they've lost 5 employees. So the EN retention rate is 83%. So I believe they're intentionally using misleading figures to misinform their shareholders as to exactly how good they are at retaining employees. Now, on their list of negatives, they say that there is a, quote, barrier to new entrants due to inability to leverage real-world influence, referring to the fact that when you debut a new talent, they have to gain fans from zero, and that the income that they generate is from building relationships with fans, not simply recognition through exposure like a typical business. Like McDonald's can just play a McDonald's ad and expect to make some amount of money from that advertisement. With VTubers, profit comes from the fan enjoyment, not just advertising. What's not listed here is that the real barrier to new entrants isn't their inability to leverage real-world influence. It's the fact that they debut way too many waves, way too frequently, and they don't give enough time and attention and promotion to their new talents. There's no suspense, there's no buildup of hype. They're just churning these people out as quickly as possible. There is very much an ability to leverage real-world influence if you gave each wave the time and attention and management that they needed to succeed. One thing I find genuinely interesting is that, as a whole, as expected, the gender of their fans skews male at about 60%. When you actually just look at any color ID, their audience skews 65% female. I don't actually know why that would be, I just find it interesting. One thing I find interesting is their top 5 VTubers are bringing in about 15% of total revenue. and those numbers rapidly decrease. You can really see why they don't particularly care about losing VTubers. When a VTuber graduates, it is negligible to them because they're losing 3% or less of their overall budget. They can easily afford to lose talents. When your income base is this diverse, you can afford to lose people pretty consistently. One thing that's particularly hilarious is that who is VTuber / virtual YouTuber, under streamer it says excludes risks / scandals related to personal, which, yeah, that's not exactly true now, is it? Scandals have absolutely impacted your profits, and it's disingenuous to your investors to pretend otherwise. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is that apparently Anycolor's Virtual Talent Academy YouTube page deleted all of their videos, yet they're still holding auditions. Their main Twitter page retweeted the auditions just 2 days ago. This is the Talent Academy set up by Niji-sanji, who had 16 talents terminated 7 months ago due to violation of rules. So I have no idea what's going on in their Virtual Talent Academy, but this is pretty weird. The next major news is that Cover Corp is opening a base in the US. And I have to imagine this is due to the success of their EN branch. And broadly speaking, everybody sees this as a positive sign, with some people pointing out that this is probably going to bring down the cost of shipping for Hololive merchandise now that they're going to have warehouses and such set up in the US. Because they are opening up a base in California, and because California is politically liberal, I've seen a couple of comments concerned about, Hololive going woke or hiring activists or blah blah blah. But I really don't think that's realistic. Most companies are pretty consistent, profit-driven organizations. Aside from lip service that they paid during Pride Month or whatever, most companies absolutely do not give a shit about culture war bullshit. Regardless of which side of the political aisle you're on and what you want to see in the company, it probably doesn't matter. Any business not directly involved with politics typically avoids politics like the plague. I think you can all safely calm down about going to California. We're not a show hiring writers from California, so the social or political opinions of the residents of California aren't really gonna directly impact the content. The content is produced by the talents, and the talents have already been hired. Now, ever since Selen Tatsuki was terminated by Niji-sanji, a lot of people have been talking about VTuber contracts, and as such, interest in those contracts have kind of spread out all over the VTuber community. And a lot of people are wondering if VTubers are even reading their contracts. And so when it was brought up to Pippa, she had this to say.
Basically, anytime you get handed a contract in Face Connect, in my experience, a member of management goes over it with you and makes sure you understand all of the details, and you can like ask questions, and you can be like, oh, what does this mean? And they'll be like, yeah, this means this, and you can also do like your negotiation stuff, and yeah.
And I suspect that's probably how it works at most agencies. It really doesn't benefit a company to hire people that have no idea what they're signing up for. Unless you're a scummy company willfully trying to pull the wool over your talent's eyes and get them to sign an inherently exploitative contract. But I have to suspect that what Pippa described is probably typical in most other agencies. The next thing that I want to talk about is actually a topic that I decided not to cover earlier because I couldn't find a way to discuss it or make a video about it. So for those who don't know, Mikeneko, formerly Rushia, allegedly attempted suicide and was later hospitalized. And this was confirmed by one of her friends on Twitter, who gave the fans an update as to exactly what happened. And I was waiting to get an update on the situation before making a video about it, rather than rushing to tell everyone the dramatic and heartbreaking news. However, unfortunately, if you try to click on any of these links now, they go nowhere. It seems all of these tweets have been deleted. However, we do now have an update directly from Mikeneko herself, so let's go ahead and review what she had to say. She says, in a dispute with another person, she was told something that was not true, robbed of a job they loved, and was living a painful and unstable life every day due to a large amount of slander. Apparently, she impulsively took a large amount of medication. One of her friends called an ambulance, And apparently this friend was a real homie because they were with her the entire time. She said she's gonna see a psychologist about the issue, and I genuinely hope her mental health recovers in the meantime. She then goes on to say that she can't really go on into detail about the slander because it's a legal dispute, but she apologizes for making everybody worry. She then goes on to say that she did something really stupid by taking too much medication, and that doing so was more painful than death. So for anyone out there who is struggling and thinking of ending it all, just know, if you survive, you're going to regret it immensely. And if you don't, the people who love you will miss you. And rather than end the video on a depressing note, I decided I'd end on a happy note. Quinn Benet, formerly Mikeneko, has re-debuted as a VTuber, and I genuinely think his design is very bombastic, very in your face, and very fun. Honestly, it's fun to see him just back in action and back to making VTuber content again. So if you haven't had a chance to, go to Quinn Benet Live to see all of his VTuber shenanigans. Apparently he's going to keep his IRL content more or less exclusive to his main channel, Quinn Benet, and Quinn Benet Live is where he's going to do all of his VTuber live streaming stuff. So go check it out.
Thank you for watching my electrolyte Q-tips. No, the defibrillators. Thanks, defibrillators. Yo, I can't. Who fucking said that? Listen, if I could find who that was, I would VIP you just for that. That was crazy. That shit was good. Okay, you know, thanks defibrillators. Shout out to you, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, I have this face too. Low key, I don't know if I'm ever gonna actually use this, but this is really good for YouTube thumbnails. So shout out to YouTube thumbnails, make my life easier. And this, listen, you can combine this with this, and okay, this is a crazy combo. If you combine this with the smug face, bro, this shit looks criminal. Like, what the fuck? Like, bro, nah, I look like I'm trying to hit on you. What the fuck? I'm like, hey, it's disgusting together. It's disgusting. It is an awful combination, bro. Actually moving. That's crazy.
I'm moving.
I didn't know I could move this much.
I'm sorry. His little fist.
And we got
when he was jumping, his little fists were looking like Arthur.
Good. Hey, how y'all doing? Hello,
my God, the purple streaks in the hair.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It really is Harry Potter.
Bro.
But that's everything I wanted to talk to you guys about. Bye, guys!